We flash back to 11 hours earlier. A girl with a shadowed face calls out to a boy named Kenji. She confesses her long-held feelings for him. And Kenji, our boy, accepts with a little too much enthusiasm. After 17 long years, he finally has a girlfriend. But then another girl appears, holding a love letter from him. He looks over, completely busted. And from the doorway, a third girl calls out to her senpai. His solution? Suggesting they all date him. And suddenly, they're all holding knives, ready to make him pay. Their verdict is absolute. And Kenji jolts awake with a scream. He's in his classroom, realizing it was all a dream. A dream that's earned him a lecture from the teacher. After class, he's still reeling from the experience. His two friends walk beside him, teasing him for sleeping. He plays it off, saying he was up late doing research. Sure, research. His friend immediately calls him out. While his other friend asks about his secret stashes, he can only glare as they laugh at his expense. One friend even offers to introduce him to someone, but Kenji is too flustered to accept the help. He shows them his wallet, completely empty. His other friend says he's busy anyway, so they part ways for the day. Walking home alone, he laments his situation. He decides that today, everything changes. His solution? Summoning a demon to grant his wish, as one does, a thought he immediately regrets saying out loud. And we see the very demon he has in mind. He worries that he can't handle a real relationship, but he's out of options and has to make this work. He arrives home, determined to finally turn things around. He pulls out an old, dusty grimoire. The summoning seems to be a complete failure, until a demon duchess named Gremory appears with a shout. She's not quite the terrifying entity he was expecting. Then, a voice calls out from beyond his door. His sister is awake and Kenji starts to panic. He immediately drops to the floor, begging for her silence. He peeks out, trying to explain away the noise. His sister seems to buy it, telling him to just get some sleep. But she stops, chiding him for staying up so late, since she's awake now and there's no school tomorrow. She brightly suggests they watch something together. In a desperate bid to keep her out, he confesses to watching research material. His sister immediately tells him this is why he'll never get a girlfriend. She then asks why he's still hiding behind the door. A look of suspicion crosses her face, wondering if he's trying to keep her out. She peeks past him, guessing his room is just a disaster zone. She gets flustered, admitting she was watching similar research material, and calls him the absolute worst for it. He watches as she scurries away, completely embarrassed. He finally shuts the door, thinking that was a close call, but Gremory is less than impressed with his methods. Calling it the worst excuse she has ever seen, he turns back to his demonic guest, apologizing for the delay. But her claws extend as she makes a chilling threat. She holds a claw to his throat, accusing him of trying to break their pact. A desperate Kenji blurts out that he remembers his past life. Gremory immediately sees through his desperation for a girlfriend. But the mention of a past life has piqued her interest. Kenji takes a moment lost in the memory. He declares that in another world, he was a legendary great sage. A claim that Gremory finds utterly convincing. She dismisses it as a pathetic, escapist delusion. But he insists it's real, explaining he died with unfinished business. And now in his weakened state, he can't return on his own. So he used his knowledge of summoning to call for aid, believing the great demon of knowledge could find him a way back. Gremory questions his tale, asking about the magic in his world. She falls silent, mulling over his explanation. Her interest is officially piqued, and she agrees to a special contract. Kenji immediately asks about the price, assuming it's his soul. But Gremory snaps, telling him he's in no position to bargain. He desperately argues that the soul of a reincarnated sage is a rare prize. She sighs, seemingly defeated by his surprisingly sound logic. And with a flourish, she declares their contract is officially formed. She reintroduces herself as Gremory, the Duchess of all knowledge. And he introduces himself as Kenji, just a high school student for now. Gremory smirks, asking what unfinished business is worth his soul. He stammers out his true wish, to check on his harem. Gremory bursts out laughing, clarifying he means humans, not penguins. He shouts that his past life's death left him with trauma, but he insists he was a total stud in his past life. Now he's just a shell of his former self, a fact he laments loudly. Her curiosity gets the better of her, asking about his cause of death. He tearfully admits he was betrayed and killed by one of them. She sighs, deciding not to question his strange motives. Instead, she begins to channel her power to open a gate. He realizes her power is granting him access to all knowledge, and in an instant, the search is complete. Gremory is ready to open the gate right then and there. But Kenji panics, realizing it would destroy the entire house. She complains about his demands, but he suggests a secluded mountain nearby. Eagerly, he rushes off to grab his shoes. He tries to sneak out, determined not to be caught this time, only to be stopped dead in his tracks. His sister is standing right in the hallway, waiting for him. She admits she was listening in, since his sneaking is just that bad. Kenji tries to play it off, but she cuts him off immediately. She tearfully asks if he's even her brother anymore. He frantically denies her accusation. Gremory chimes in, confirming his current self is still intact. He tries to explain that he has a reason he must return. She asks if it's truly that important to him. She wonders if he's that desperate to see those other girls, and in a flash, she drives a blade into his side. Gremory can only watch, completely stunned. Kenji collapses, questioning why she would do this. His sister stands over him, demanding Gremory come out of hiding. Gremory is speechless as the girl questions their entire sibling bond. With a crazed look, she declares that he tried to abandon her, and that she's the only one for him, in this life and the last. A horrifying realization dawns on Kenji as she reveals she also remembers. She was his first partner, and the one who betrayed him. A flashback shows her past self, a fox spirit named Saki, by his side. She explains that after ending his life, she couldn't live without him. So she cast a reincarnation spell to ensure they would be reborn together. And she's been blissfully happy having him all to herself for 17 years. Her happy reunion is interrupted, and she is not pleased. She turns on Gremory, warning the demon to stay away from her brother. But Gremory notes that this isn't an act of resentment. She scoffs, asking what a mere human thinks she can do. The girl just smirks, repeating the word human with disdain, and in a flash of light, her form begins to change. Gremory can only stare in utter shock. Even Kenji, bleeding out, is stunned by this transformation. His sister now stands before them in her true form, as the fox spirit Saki. She reveals this world was chosen for a reason. It's her homeland. Saki explains that unlike Gremory, she can use her full power here. She suggests they take their fight elsewhere, not wanting to destroy the house. A wounded Kenji desperately tries to stop them. He pleads with them, insisting there's no need for a fight, but his body gives out as he coughs up blood. Saki promises to return once she's dealt with the demon. With that, she leaps from the balcony, leading Gremory away. Gremory notes the fox spirit's audacity, fighting while showing her back. An insult that the Duchess of All Knowledge will not tolerate. She unleashes a powerful blast, only for it to shatter against an unseen barrier. Saki looks back with a confident smirk, denying any underestimation. She calmly waits as Gremory closes the distance between them. The two leap into the sky high above the sleeping city. Saki erects a massive barrier, creating their own private arena. Now, she declares, they can finally go all out. She smiles, saying her brother will be waiting for the winner. And with that, she unleashes a torrent of foxfire. Gremory dodges the flames, calling out the crazed fox spirit. She summons her own power, ready to show Saki her place. Meanwhile, Kenji lies bleeding out, his life fading away. He knows he has to stop them, but it's all pointless. If only he had a fraction of his former power. But then a desperate idea takes hold. He looks to the sky where the battle rages on, and he has a truly terrible last-ditch plan. Meanwhile, Gremory deflects another wave of foxfire. She counters by summoning a massive, shadowy scythe, a weapon that Saki parries without even flinching. The Duchess can only stare, shocked by her opponent's power. Saki just smiles, telling her it's completely useless. Saki stops the blade with her bare hand, shocked by its power. The impact sends her flying backward, unable to believe it. But Gremory just grins, explaining she's been absorbing Saki's attacks. Her weapon is now overflowing with stolen magical energy. And with a surge of speed, she lunges in for the final blow. Saki throws up a desperate defense against the incoming blast, but the explosion tears through her guard with ease, leaving nothing but dust in its wake. Gremory looks on in shock as a single finger points her way. Kenji stands before Saki, having blocked the attack himself. She can't believe her ultimate attack was stopped by a single finger. Saki is just as stunned, wondering how he can use magic here. He smirks, explaining he simply absorbed the magic they were wasting. Now glowing with power, he stands between the two combatants. Saki looks on in horror as his fatal wound completely heals. He healed himself, reinforced his body, and teleported into their barrier. And Gremory can't help but be impressed by his exceptional skill. Saki realizes she can't possibly win against her master now. With his hand still glowing, he tells Saki it's time to talk. He then turns to Gremory, asking her to back down for now. Gremory agrees with a yawn, calling him her summoner. Saki can only stare, completely at a loss for words. Kenji takes a shaky breath, the tension finally breaking. With the battle averted, he leads her back down to the house. They stand on the balcony, the fight now a distant memory. Saki finally speaks, expecting him to resent her for what she's done. But instead of anger, he gently places a hand on her shoulder and pulls her into a hug, whispering that he's sorry. He admits it was his fault for cornering her like that. A memory flashes of her past self, realizing her folly as she watched him die. The memory shows her past self, fearing he would leave her for the others. Saki looks up, asking why he'd make a demonic pact just for that. He smiles, explaining that his past self is gone, and that now he is simply her brother. She breaks down, confessing her fear of being forgotten, a fear that drove her to destroy everything he held dear. Through her tears, she asks if he can still see her as his sister. He just smiles, blaming his own cowardice for not seeing her pain. But he adds that there's one more thing to do, and just like that, Gremory opens a massive gate in the sky. Gremory grins, declaring their contract is absolute. After all, if his world is truly overflowing with magic, it would be a perfect new vacation spot for demonkind. Saki looks on in horror, realizing the gate isn't just for a visit, but Gremory is caught off guard as something shoots from the portal. Meanwhile, in that other world, the sky begins to shift. A voice announces that their master's reincarnation has been located. Two women look up from their conversation, realizing what this means. The members of his former harem now know that they can finally be reunited with the man they lost. One of them notes that his new form is completely different, while her companion seems delighted by his weakened state, a chance to finally make him hers and hers alone. And with a chilling smile, she welcomes him to a new kind of hell. But back in his world, the portal unleashes monstrous creatures. Kenji and Saki can only stare in disbelief from their balcony. Gremory looks down, unimpressed by these otherworldly pests. But she's not the only one who's come through the gate. A horned warrior leaps into action against a towering beast, immediately identified as a hostile by this world's defenders. A winged drone announces its mission to intercept. Gremory is completely baffled by this new development. The horned warrior deflects a volley of arrows with ease. While Gremory gets tangled in some kind of black goo, Kenji panics, realizing his old harem can't find him yet. Gremory multiplies herself, desperately holding back the drone's assault. Apparently, multitasking isn't a demon duchess's strong suit. Saki points out that if the barrier falls, the whole world will see. Kenji sighs, his plan for a quiet return now completely ruined. He reaches out, deciding to take control and send them all back. He admits he's fresh out of magic to fix this mess, but he tries to reassure a worried Saki that it'll be fine. He points to the sky as the gate begins to distort. Meanwhile, Gremory is being stretched thin by the drones. Literally. The horned warrior rushes forward, a being of immense power. She wonders how such a form can be maintained here. The drones around her begin to spark and overload. Before shattering into countless fragments, she stands alone in the void, the threat now neutralized. A grin spreads across her face, excited for what's to come. Saki looks on, realizing she has questions for her summoner. But Gremory makes a dramatic entrance, landing right before them. She eagerly demands to know more about his magic-filled world. Kenji just smiles, casually telling her the trip is off. She pins him to the ground, glowing with the gate's leaked energy, and asks what he thinks will happen if she just takes it all. She seems to find the idea of an impossible fight exhilarating, but her triumphant mood suddenly vanishes, as Kenji calmly asks if she's underestimating his true power. The question gives her pause, her expression turning serious. Kenji explains that the creatures from the gate are highly intelligent, but Gremory just laughs, calling them nothing more than low-level scouts, a statement that seems to confuse even herself. He reminds her that his world's magic is far weaker than hers, which means the creatures native to it are absurdly powerful. Some are even strong enough to destroy entire nations, and the humans there are just as terrifyingly strong. She finally puts it together, asking if his world is stronger than the demon realm. A horrifying thought crosses her mind, that its inhabitants might be stronger than even her. Gremory is completely starstruck by this world of swords and magic, but her excitement quickly turns to utter despair. She wails, lamenting the loss of such a golden opportunity. Kenji tries to calm her down, promising to uphold his end of the deal. But Saki overhears his promise to give up his soul, and she immediately lunges at Gremory, calling her a thief. Kenji quickly intervenes, holding his sister back. She struggles, insisting the demon must be destroyed, but he explains their contract makes it impossible. Gremory can only watch the chaotic family drama unfold, until a devious little smile crosses her face. Gremory announces she's tired and heading home. She gives a parting smile, promising to collect his soul when his time is up, and with a final smug look, the Duchess of All Knowledge simply vanishes. Kenji and Saki are left alone, wondering if it's finally over, but a sudden sound of panic echoes from inside. Gremory is back, and she looks completely bewildered. A new girl appears asking if the demon can't get home. Wait, who's this? Gremory explains that her temporary body should have just dissolved. The new girl looks on, realizing the demon is now trapped here. The new girl's eyes widen with a sudden realization. She asks Gremory if she's noticed something about her body, pointing out that it has fully taken root in this world. Kenji connects the dots. She absorbed the gate's leaked magic. Her temporary vessel is now bound by the laws of this reality. The girl cheerfully explains she's now a mere human with a bit of magic, a fact that leaves the Duchess of All Knowledge utterly stunned. She collapses to the floor, her spirit completely broken. Her grand escape plan is now nothing but a distant memory. Then she spots Saki's knife, and her mood improves dramatically. She grabs the knife, hysterically believing it's her only way home. But Kenji lunges forward, grabbing her arm to stop her. He looks on, completely bewildered by her actions. Gremory stares back, just as confused by his intervention. The new girl asks why he would even bother to help. The blade clatters uselessly to the floor, and in a flash, Gremory's clothes completely disappear. Well, that's one way to de-escalate. She lets out a mortified shriek, her fangs bared in shock. Kenji quickly covers his eyes as Saki tells him off for peeking, and the former Duchess of All Knowledge flees the room in shame. The new girl explains this is a side effect of the summoning ritual. The grimoire was meant to supplement her power in this world, but with the contract fulfilled, that magical support vanished, leaving the Duchess with barely enough power to stay clothed. Kenji and the girl can only stare as Gremory sobs pitifully. The girl suggests he could make another contract with her, but Kenji refuses, wanting to handle his past without demonic help. Saki steps in, telling him it's not that simple anymore. She explains his former harem already knows where he is. He tries to laugh it off, hoping they wouldn't recognize him. Saki explains that his harem wasn't just drawn to his power. She tearfully confesses that she loves him even in his current form. Kenji is left completely speechless by her declaration. He just scratches his head, calling her worries unfounded. He then turns back to the sobbing Gremory on the floor. But Saki suggests it's best to just leave her be for now. Kenji agrees, deciding to get some sleep after this chaotic night. But Saki gently grabs his sleeve, stopping him in his tracks. She explains that even after learning the truth, he still cared for her. And with a blush, she asks if he'll stay with her tonight. He gently pats her head, trying to comfort her. She holds his hand tightly, her face flushed with emotion, and looks up at him, calling him her brother once more. He gently turns her down, offering to sleep in their dad's room. A decision that seems to shock the mysterious new girl. Saki accepts his answer and quietly leaves for the night, leaving Kenji alone with the still sobbing former Duchess. But the new girl approaches Gremory with an idea. She offers a deal with a smile that's not exactly reassuring, an offer that catches the demon's attention, even in her despair. The mysterious girl's eyes swirl as she proposes a deal. She offers to fix Gremory's current very human predicament. The demon clings to her, desperately asking if it's really possible. The girl claims to have studied the very reincarnation magic Saki once used. Gremory falls silent, a flicker of hope in her eyes, but she knows there's always a catch. She panics, insisting she has nothing left to offer as payment. The girl simply raises a hand to silence her, and holds up 3 fingers laying out her terms. Her first demand is for Kenji to fall madly in love with her. You know, the old-fashioned way. Gremory questions the logic since they're siblings in this life. The girl explains that with their parents gone, she could just alter the family registry. She dismisses the demon's shock, acting as if it's perfectly normal. Gremory nervously asks for the second condition. The girl leans in with a chilling smile, promising this deal is for Gremory's benefit too. As a new day dawns, Kenji walks the halls, having barely slept a wink. He sighs, wondering how he's supposed to handle the Gremory situation. He stops at a closed door, calling out to the former Duchess, and opens it, ready to discuss their future arrangements. But he finds Gremory and Saki sitting together, looking surprisingly friendly. Saki greets him with a cheerful good morning, while Gremory just grunts. He asks how they got so chummy, and Saki explains they had a little chat. Gremory then announces she's decided to accept a new contract. Kenji is stunned as she admits she's too anxious without any magic. Saki explains the new deal. Gremory will protect him from his past life's partners. A standard procedure, Gremory adds, for a demon planning a long-term stay. She then adds another condition. The contract lasts until his life ends. She admits she wanted it to last until she could go home, but Saki's smile says otherwise. Kenji considers the price, knowing his soul is already on the table. He offers up his computer as payment, an offer that the former Duchess finds deeply insulting. But Saki steps in, reassuring her brother that it's all taken care of. She's already agreed to provide Gremory with room and board. When he asks about their parents, Saki just says she'll handle it. Kenji takes a moment to consider this new arrangement. He agrees, leaving the final decision to a flustered Gremory. And with a grin, she officially accepts her new role as his bodyguard. Kenji smiles, relieved that the crisis has been averted. But Gremory suddenly collapses, her energy completely spent. Kenji extends his hand, declaring their new contract is formed. Gremory eagerly asks if this means her magic will finally return. A faint glow surrounds her as the pack's power begins to flow. She leaps into the air, overjoyed as her energy comes rushing back. She claps her hands together, ready to put her restored power to use. And in a flash of light, her power returns with a dramatic flare. She reappears in her demonic attire, much more comfortable now. Saki, however, is not amused. With that sorted, Kenji asks where she's planning to stay. A mischievous idea seems to strike the former Duchess. She happily announces she's taking his room, much to his dismay. A look of pure, unadulterated shock crosses Kenji's face. He points a finger, flatly refusing to give up his room. He asks where he's supposed to go as Saki offers up her own room, an idea that Kenji is clearly not comfortable with. Saki asks with a sweet smile if he has a problem with that. He panics, trying to explain the very human concept of privacy. She says she wouldn't mind his research, but he insists that he does. Saki is left to ponder his very flustered reaction. Gremory reluctantly agrees to another room, but not without a complaint, because of course she has a complaint. So Kenji decides to clear out the storage room, and Saki suggests they go shopping. But Gremory stops him, wanting to hear about his past life's harem. Kenji admits he might have been in over his head. Saki dramatically announces there were 7 of them, and that they even formed a round table to manage things, because that's not a red flag at all. He shouts that his past self was just a weakling with nothing but magic. Gremory asks if he knows which of the 7 betrayed him. And we flash back to a grand castle as he admits he has his suspicions. The sound of hurried footsteps echoes down a long hall. A cloaked figure rushes to meet a masked woman, apologizing for being late. Elsewhere, an elven woman wonders about the reason for this sudden summons. A girl with two-toned hair bursts in, cheerfully announcing she knows what's going on. And we see the full round table, a gathering of Kenji's former partners. They sit in a grand hall, a throne for each of them. First, there's Veracruz, the scorching flame. Then Anita, the vessel of tears. And Charlestina, the iron-blooded saint. You know, just a casual Tuesday meeting. We also see Elatier, the windflower serpent. The masked woman, Karsavina, announces that his reincarnation has been found. Elatier simply smirks as if she's been waiting for this. But Charlestina is completely stunned by the news. She clasps her hands, overjoyed by this miracle. But another member of the table demands to see the proof. Karsavina obliges, conjuring a magical projection for them all. It shows a live feed of Kenji and Saki on their balcony. A woman with glasses points to the screen, beginning her explanation. Charlestina can only stare in utter disbelief. The woman confirms the boy's energy signature is a perfect match. Veracruz just smirks, calling him a fool even in his new life. Though she quickly tells the others not to use that word. Guess that's her special privilege. Elatier, however, is completely smitten by his adorable new form. But Anita points to the screen, demanding to know why Saki is there. She smashes her fists on the table, screaming about the traitorous fox. Her hands are a mangled mess from the sheer force of her rage. But they quickly heal as Elatier suggests she's being too soft. Charlestina asks why their master would open a gate just to leave. Karsavina explains the gate was attacked and immediately forced shut. She adds that a hostile presence may have interfered with the summoning, an idea that Anita seems to take as a personal challenge. Charlestina eagerly volunteers to go, but Anita shuts her down. Veracruz cuts in, asking for intel on the new world. Karsavina explains they're still gathering intel on this new world, an idea that clearly frustrates Elatier. Meanwhile, in another part of the castle, one of the missing members reclines with a knowing smile. And in a dark cave far from the castle, the final member of the harem looks absolutely feral. Her eyes are wide with a manic energy. Her hand clenches, trembling with anticipation. A magical seal begins to burn away, a development that catches Karsavina completely by surprise. Karsavina reports that her magical surveillance on Semania has been destroyed. Elatier immediately vanishes, declaring she's going to investigate. Charlestina wants to follow, but hesitates over her royal duties. But she quickly decides she can't abandon someone she sees as a sister. The woman with glasses also gets up because this is officially turning into a field trip. And far away, the heavy seal on a massive door begins to give way. Veracruz watches them go, wondering if this was all part of the plan. The woman with glasses asks what she means, but Veracruz refuses to elaborate. She simply states that she understands the other's desires all too well. But she turns away, warning her not to take things too far. Veracruz slams her fist on the table in frustration. She tells the woman with glasses that they're more alike than she thinks. But Karsavina insists their clumsy, pure love is nothing like her own. She claims her own desires are far simpler than they can imagine. And with that, another member decides to take this chance. Power surges through her as she prepares to make her move. She unleashes a blast of pure energy that shatters the very ground beneath her. Guess someone's excited. The girl with two-toned hair appears, caught in the sudden descent. Eletier arrives as well, telling the eager saint to calm down. Charlestina screams in frustration, feeling she's failed the one she serves. The others continue on, with Eletier making a casual remark about her companion's personality. Karsavina holds a small, ornate device, ignoring Eletier's suggestion to just teleport. They arrive at a snowy cave where Charlestina has made a less than graceful landing. Eletier asks why she didn't speak up sooner, while the saint blames her crash on being intimidated. She quickly heals herself, admitting she might have been a bit short-tempered. Eletier offers a handkerchief, reminding her of her duties as a princess. A reminder that quickly turns into some very hands-on teasing. Charlestina can only sputter in embarrassment at her friend's forwardness. Eletier strikes a pose, telling her to behave for the sake of the castle's discipline. Charlestina insists this is her holding back, much to Eletier's confusion. As the three walk, Eletier asks if they've found any clues, but Karsavina's surveillance device has crumbled into dust. Charlestina asks where Semania could have gone. Karsavina explains that Anita is already tracking her down, and from a treetop, the girl with two-toned hair watches them pass. Suddenly, a massive tower of light erupts in the distance, a sight that seems to impress the treetop observer. Elsewhere, Charlestina is already in combat with a massive golem. Karsavina looks on, caught completely off guard by the attack. Charlestina asks what has Karsavina so distracted. She reports the 7th Research Tower's golem was destroyed by Semania. A horrifying thought dawns on Charlestina. That tower is where they keep the gate to his world. She panics, wondering why Semania would go there. She suggests they just teleport directly to the gate. But Karsavina explains that's too dangerous. Patience is clearly not a virtue here. With a snap of her fingers, she agrees to a safer spot. The three are enveloped in light, ready to depart. And from a distance, the girl with two-toned hair looks up. Meanwhile, Anita arrives at a sealed door, only to be greeted by a monstrous guardian. She raises a hand ready to strike, and unleashes a blast of pure force. The beast is torn to shreds in an instant, but her work here is far from over. A voice calls out from the darkness, and Anita finds herself completely immobilized. She glares at the girl, demanding to know why she's interfering. The girl just smiles, claiming she's a pacifist who just wants to talk. Sure she is. The girl leans in close, asking how Anita knew about the gate. Anita is left completely speechless by the question. The girl turns away, mentioning their master's name. Anita explains that their master promised she could see him again. Her companion dismisses this as a convincing illusion. She asks if she can leave now, seemingly unconcerned with the others. She declares her intent to uphold her promise to their master, and asks Anita to look after him in her stead. A very trustworthy request, I'm sure. Anita can only stare, completely thrown by this sudden shift. As the girl departs, the gate behind her crumbles into dust. Anita is pulled into a swirling vortex. The girl with two-toned hair watches her disappear. She decides she can't just let her friend be taken, and with a shout, she prepares to follow. But elsewhere, the gate shatters into nothingness. Charlestina realizes they were too late to stop it. Suddenly, the girl with two-toned hair appears before them. She cheekily asks if they enjoyed Karsavina's slow-motion teleport. Charlestina panics, asking if Semania is trapped inside. But Eletier reminds her that losing the gate is the real disaster. Eletier just hopes that Semania can reach their master safely. Meanwhile, back in the present, Kenji is completely exhausted. He struggles with the shopping bags as Saki and Gremory walk on. Gremory floats above, calling him pathetic for needing help. But Saki kindly offers to carry half of his burden. Gremory smirks, deciding she'll just follow Saki's lead. A look from Saki reminds her of their deal to win Kenji over. Kenji suddenly stops, looking surprised by something. Gremory suggests they head home for breakfast, complaining about human needs, until her own stomach lets out a very loud, very human growl. Gremory is left completely flustered by her very human weakness. Saki suggests they eat out, and Kenji offers to introduce her to ramen. He explains it's a kind of soul food, much to the demon's confusion, and so they arrive at a humble little ramen shop. Gremory takes her first bite, her eyes sparkling with delight. The steaming bowl of noodles is a revelation. She can't believe how delicious this mortal food is. The three of them eat together, a surprisingly peaceful moment. She finishes every last drop, forgetting all about her demonic dignity, and slams the bowl down, a true convert to the ways of ramen. Gremory pats her stomach, admitting she was wrong to mock human food. Kenji calls out for another bowl, happy she's enjoying herself. The former Duchess is moved to tears, wishing she could eat like this every day. But Saki bluntly points out that she'll get fat if she does. Kenji agrees, explaining that's just one of the perks of being human, a thought that sends Gremory into a brief doughy panic. Saki tells her not to worry, reminding her of her duty to protect Kenji. Gremory raises her glass, confidently declaring she's already gathered intel. She breaks down her analysis, sorting the harem by their threat level in this world. Kenji doubts anyone will even show up, but Saki seems far less certain. But Saki pauses mid-bite, a sudden sense of dread washing over her. Meanwhile, on a mountain overlooking the city, something comes crashing down from the heavens. Guess the universe heard her. A young girl lies in the crater, slowly stirring. She opens her eyes, completely disoriented. She jolts upright, trying to make sense of her surroundings. But then she catches a familiar scent on the wind. Her expression softens, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. She recognizes the smell of her long-lost master, and a memory surfaces of a happier time, with Saki by her side. She knows without a doubt that he's close by. A memory surfaces of Saki chiding her for a strange smell. A smell she now realizes is her own, wondering if she's been bathing. Saki had warned her not to displease their master, and so she decides she must clean herself before their reunion. Priorities, people. She follows the scent of water through the woods, finding a stream to wash away the grime of her journey. She smiles, feeling refreshed and ready to meet him. She even washes her clothes, though the water isn't exactly pristine, wringing them out with a determined grip. She shakes her head, trying to get dry, but her clothes are still soaked, much to her disgust. Then a brilliant idea takes hold. She plants her feet firmly on the ground, deciding if she just runs fast enough, they'll dry on the way. Flawless logic. And with a burst of speed, the ground cracks beneath her. She tears through the forest like a feral comet, until she suddenly stops, her eyes wide with surprise. She's reached the edge of the woods overlooking the city below, and without a moment's hesitation, she continues her mad dash. Her eyes are wide with wonder and confusion. She looks out over the city, a completely alien landscape to her, and is nearly introduced to this world's most famous isekai trope. She leaps high into the air, easily dodging the oncoming truck, and lands on the other side, completely bewildered by the encounter. She realizes there was a person inside, meaning it wasn't a monster. She shakes her head, deciding to worry about that later. Her only priority now is finding her master. Elsewhere, Kenji is completely exhausted from carrying the shopping bags. He complains about how long the girls take, realizing it's already dinner time. Saki apologizes for getting carried away on their shopping trip. A defeated Kenji just shuffles off to put the bags away. Saki turns on Gremory, asking why she's being so difficult. But her smile turns chilling as she asks if Gremory is afraid he'll become popular. She then cheerfully heads off to make dinner, leaving the demon to think on that. Gremory is left sweating, realizing just how possessive this fox spirit truly is. She wonders if all his former partners are this intense. Later that evening, they finish up their home-cooked meal. A surprisingly domestic scene for a sage, a fox spirit, and a demon. As Kenji clears the table, Gremory admits the food was good, but not as good as ramen. Saki offers to do the dishes since Kenji handled dinner, but a sudden thought makes Kenji freeze in his tracks. He'd completely forgotten about the blood-soaked summoning circle in his room. So he turns to Gremory, asking the demon for a little help, but he's met with a sudden, deafening silence. Gremory is lounging on the couch, completely ignoring them. Saki finds her passed out, calling her a useless freeloader. Guess demon duchesses aren't built for modern entertainment. Saki clenches her fists, realizing this is her chance. A chance to prove she's the only one he'll ever need. The two girls then put on a united front, welcoming him home. He scrubs away the last of the summoning circle. He wipes his brow, satisfied with his work. The room is now so clean it barely feels like his own, but he suddenly remembers the mess on the balcony. He slides the door open, realizing it's already pitch black, and finds a strange, shadowy creature waiting for him. A shout from downstairs echoes as Gremory rushes to the scene. She and Saki race up the stairs, fearing the worst. They burst in, calling out to Kenji in a panic, only to find him being tickled by the feral girl from the woods. So much for a life-threatening situation. Saki and Gremory can only stare, completely baffled by the scene. Kenji tries to calm down the sobbing girl clinging to him. He's completely overwhelmed by her emotional reunion. She cries out that she's finally found him. Kenji just looks on, still trying to process what's happening. Gremory, however, seems to have figured out the situation. And she immediately accuses Kenji of being a total degenerate, because of course she does. The feral girl looks up, not appreciating the demon's tone. Kenji desperately suggests they all just calm down and talk. While Saki looks on, her happy reunion now officially a party of 3. The feral girl looks up, a smug little smile on her face. With everyone settled, Kenji decides to get some answers. He asks how she knew it was him, with his form and power so different. She just tilts her head, muttering something about his scent. Then she's back to clinging to him, happy that her master is still strong. But she pulls away, saying she has a question of her own. She turns to Saki, demanding to know why a traitor is by his side. Kenji quickly places a hand on her head, trying to de-escalate. He explains it was all just a misunderstanding, asking her to forgive Saki. The room falls silent as the 2 former partners stare each other down. But Gremory has a question of her own. She asks how they can all understand each other. Kenji explains he created a permanent translation magic, a long story that Saki immediately cuts short. Gremory notes the massive gap between his past and present selves. The feral girl, Nia, finally looks at Saki with sorrow. She admits everyone was so angry she couldn't even cry. Saki offers a truce, promising to try and forgive her. A single word is all it takes to bring a smile to Nia's face. Kenji thinks the situation is finally resolved, but Gremory knows their problems are just beginning. Saki warns that with Nia here, the others are sure to follow. She points, declaring there's only one way to avoid it. They have to send Nia back to her world immediately. An idea that Nia is, shall we say, not a fan of, but Saki just smirks, completely unfazed by the threat. Kenji and Gremory can only watch as things escalate. Nia's rage explodes, shattering the floor beneath her. Saki just laughs, daring the little beast to try her best. And Nia obliges, transforming into a monstrous wolf. Saki turns away, promising to send her packing herself. She transforms into a tiny, fluffy creature, much to Gremory's disgust. Kenji reminds her of their contract as the tiny fox lands on Gremory's head. He explains that her power only works when she's protecting him, a fact Gremory realizes makes her completely useless against a human target. Nia stomps her foot, ready to end this, and lunges forward with a furious roar. But Saki easily intercepts the attack, sending Nia flying. The feral girl lands hard, completely stunned. Saki steps in front of Gremory, telling her to stay back. She explains Nia's physical power is legendary, a fact that leaves Gremory utterly terrified. Nia stands defeated, muttering that Saki is just getting in her way. But her frustration quickly boils over into pure rage, until a voice cuts through her anger, stopping her cold. Kenji steps in, his expression serious. Nia immediately looks to her master, her fury forgotten. He reminds her that her strength doesn't give her the right to attack, a lecture that Saki seems to be enjoying just a little too much. Nia is left completely flustered, unable to argue back, so she resorts to throwing a full-blown tantrum on the floor, leaving her in a defeated little heap, the fight completely forgotten. The feral girl looks up, finally introducing herself as Nia. Kenji just sighs, completely drained by the chaos. He decides food is the best solution, an idea Nia wholeheartedly supports, so he leads her off to the kitchen hand in hand, leaving the other 2 to deal with the aftermath. Gremory is about to comment, but Saki tells her to just don't. The former Duchess mulls it over, noting Kenji's weakness and Saki's questionable attitude. She accuses Saki of being willing to do anything to win him over, a threat Saki doesn't take kindly to, warning her to watch her words. But she clarifies that Nia is different, much to Gremory's surprise. Saki begins to explain Nia's past, starting with a mission they took on, the subjugation of a thunder giant, which ended in a flash. Afterward, they celebrated with a local beastman tribe, and it was there that Saki first laid eyes on a feral child chained and alone. She was the chieftain's daughter, cursed and unable to take human form. When Kenji's past self learned of her plight, he took her in by force. At first, the girl was terrified of everything and everyone, but when Kenji reached out to her, she responded with the only language she knew. A real people person, this one. She sank her teeth into his arm, a desperate, feral act of defiance. But his calm reaction seemed to confuse her, and slowly she began to let go. He just smiled, showing her kindness instead of anger. Saki explains it took a long time for Nia to finally open up to him. Gremory wonders if Saki is just romanticizing the past, but Saki insists he's still handsome. She continues, explaining that for Nia, Kenji became a parental figure, and for Saki, Nia was like a little sister. A bond Gremory notes that Saki herself chose to shatter. Gremory stands before Saki, humbled by the tragic story, but she quickly shakes it off, annoyed by this emotional roller coaster. She asks Saki what she plans to do now, a question that Saki can't seem to answer. Meanwhile, Kenji watches Nia happily devour her food. He smiles, watching her with a gentle fondness, a quiet, almost paternal look on his face. He calls out to her, his tone suddenly serious. He explains that his past self is gone, that he's a different person now. But he reassures her that she, of all people, would understand. Nia looks up with wide eyes, asking if he's unhappy to see her. He quickly denies it, flustered that she'd cross worlds just for him. But he reminds her that there are others back home who care for her, a thought that leaves the feral girl completely speechless. He asks how she even knew to come here all by herself. He pats her head, saying the others wouldn't be cruel enough to send her alone. Nia explains that they'll probably come to pick her up soon enough, and when they do, she expects him to return with them. A suggestion that gives our boy a moment of pause. She asks if he'll still want to go back, knowing the others will surely follow. Nia's eyes widen in disbelief at his words. Kenji explains he plans to forget his past life entirely. Her hands clench, her knuckles turning white. She tearfully asks how he can say that with Saki by his side. He tries to explain that the people of that world are different now, but she just declares that if he dies, she'll reincarnate with him. Well, that's one way to solve the problem. Kenji grabs her arm, his patience wearing thin, and pulls her into a hug, telling her not to say such things. He pleads with her, his own voice filled with sorrow. Nia can only blush, muttering his name in his arms. He holds her gently, his expression softening. She asks if he finally understands her feelings, and begs him to let her stay until the others arrive. She promises to be a good girl, to do whatever he asks. Kenji closes his eyes, completely defeated by her plea. He smiles, admitting he just can't say no to her. He agrees to let her stay, promising to sort out his feelings. Nia throws her arms around him, overjoyed by his answer, and he returns the hug, accepting his new reality. He carries the now quiet girl away from the kitchen. He looks down, realizing she's finally fallen asleep in his arms. He carries her upstairs, deciding to let her rest in their dad's room. The cleanup can wait until tomorrow. Tonight, he just needs to rest. And so, a fragile peace settles over the chaotic household. But later that night, a door quietly creaks open. Nia stands over Kenji's bed, watching him as he sleeps. He wakes to find her there, as she recalls the pain of his death. But more than that, she admits she was envious of Saki, jealous that the fox spirit had him all to herself in this new life. So she makes a simple demand. Until the others arrive, he belongs to her. She declares that no one else can take him from her, and leans in close to leave her mark, a possessive gesture to claim him as her own. She whispers that he now belongs only to her, promising to consume every last part of him. The next morning, the school bell rings. Saki rushes to his classroom, telling him to hurry up. His friends say their goodbyes as she apologizes for borrowing him. Walking home, he admits he's worried about leaving Gremory alone, a thought that sends Nia into a fit, insisting she's coming too. He suggests staying home, but Saki isn't so sure. Gremory cuts in, telling him not to be so soft. She grabs Nia, deciding to handle this herself, and scolds the feral girl for causing so much trouble. Kenji just closes his eyes, a silent decision made. Nia looks up, her defiance melting away at his gaze. He gently places a hand on her shoulder and reminds her of her promise to behave. She quietly apologizes, her tantrum finally over. So Saki tasks Gremory with babysitting duty for the day. Guest bodyguarding comes with some unexpected perks. Gremory's idea of babysitting involves a cardboard box and some light stalking. Saki asks if she plans to do this every single day. Later, they arrive home to find Gremory and Nia waiting for them. Nia seems to be analyzing the household's new power structure, and she quickly places Kenji at the very top of the food chain, a hierarchy she immediately enforces by dragging Gremory around. She declares she'll look after this little kid, much to the demon's fury. Kenji leaves for school, but not without a very worried glance back. As the day passes, the two finally return home, announcing their arrival, but he stops dead, hearing Saki's worried voice from inside. He drops his shoes in a panic and sprints down the hall as Saki calls after him. He bursts into the room, shouting at them in terror, only to find Gremory and Nia just playing video games. On screen, a familiar-looking saint swings her mighty weapon, while an elven warrior dodges a flurry of attacks, racking up an impressive 32-hit combo. Gremory is absolutely losing her mind over this trash game. Guess someone's a sore loser. Kenji turns to Saki, asking why she would ever teach them this. Saki explains that she was just trying to keep them occupied. Gremory boasts that as a Duchess of Knowledge, she can master any game instantly, but Nia immediately abandons the game to greet Kenji. Gremory says she doesn't mind playing with the kid, but she really needs to take a bath first. Personal hygiene is apparently a foreign concept. Kenji tries to explain that Nia already washed up in a stream. He gently pats her head, asking her to be patient with their new house guest. Nia agrees, promising to be a good girl and listen to him. But then she asks if she can at least bathe with him later. A request that sends Kenji into a full-blown panic. A cold sweat runs down his back as he realizes this is a terrible idea. He turns to Gremory for help, but she just laughs in his face. She teases him, asking if he's really that flustered by the girl. Defeated, Kenji takes Nia by the hand, leading her off to the bath. Gremory asks Saki if he really had a harem, seeing him as just a kid. Saki just says that his current life has had its own complications. She explains that even as a child, he was always confessing to girls, an effort that was met with a rather crushing rejection, a pattern that continued well into his elementary school days, and followed him all the way through his teenage years. Guess he's always been a ladies' man, just not a successful one. Saki explains that his constant rejections have left him with a deep-seated trauma, a fact she seems deeply ashamed to admit. Gremory continues to press her for more details, but Saki warns her to drop the subject, not liking loose-lipped demons. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Nia is enjoying having her hair washed, while Kenji just tries to get through it without dying of embarrassment. But her calling him master snaps him out of his panic. She then asks when he thinks the others will come for her. He reaches for the shower head, agreeing with her point. Admitting that they should have arrived a long time ago, he recalls that Karsavina was in charge of the gate, and wonders if Anita or Elatier will be the ones to come for her. Nia then reveals that someone told her the truth about the past. Kenji wonders who would use his name to manipulate her like that. Back in the other world, Charlestina feels she's grown too complacent. She slams her hand down, insisting the whole situation is strange, raging that Karsavina lured Semania to a gate she never knew existed. But Veracruz calmly tells the furious saint to settle down. Charlestina insists there must be a traitor within the castle walls, a suggestion that Karsavina dismisses with a confident smile. Charlestina argues that they must consider every possibility, but Karsavina slams down a stack of intelligence reports. Charlestina reads them, shocked to learn of a plot to erase his influence. Veracruz snatches one of the documents for herself. She learns the Crown Prince's faction is involved, along with several ministers. The paper begins to burn in her hands from sheer rage. Charlestina cries, unable to believe they'd betray the man who saved them. She declares she'll have her family abdicate, physically if necessary, and smashes the table, furious that Semania is in danger because of them. Karsavina calmly explains this is a classic diversion tactic. She explains this is their chance to show their true power. The Northern Empire is amassing 100,000 troops at the border, a classic ploy to divide their forces and weaken their response. She asks Charlestina if they should handle this internal mess together, and reveals that Veracruz is already on site, waiting for Semania. Charlestina apologizes, realizing she's been far too short-sighted, but Karsavina notes that she never said who was pulling the strings. She's just eager to see who makes the next move, and how her beloved master will react to it all. Meanwhile, Veracruz stands on the front lines, facing the invading army. Veracruz muses that the man they called the Great Sage was a fool, but she immediately refutes her own thought, insisting they trusted him, a trust that she now realizes was actually love. She's completely flustered, wondering why she's so conflicted, but she vows that the next time they meet, things will be different. Her thoughts are interrupted by a hooded figure appearing behind her. She turns just in time to see the attack coming, but it's too late, as a fist sends her reeling. She's surrounded by a squad of mysterious assailants. Guess waiting for Semania was not the best plan. The figures report their success, ordered to move on to the next target. Veracruz struggles to her feet, insisting she's not done yet. She shatters her restraints with a single powerful punch. The hooded figures call her careless, quickly adjusting their formation. One of them casts a spell, creating a field to block teleportation, while another jams all communications. Guess they've done their homework. Their leader declares that her luck has simply run out. But Veracruz rises to her feet, her expression now deadly serious. She points a single finger, her intent made crystal clear. And with a furious roar, she unleashes a devastating blast. Her rage is a terrifying and beautiful thing to behold, but the hooded figure can only lament her power. Veracruz stands over the defeated Imperial advance team. She admits she was only planning to use a fraction of her strength. A massive blade slams into the earth. As Veracruz decides on a change of plans, she unleashes her true form, ready to annihilate them all, and leaps to a cliff's edge, her power now completely unrestrained. A terrifying manic grin spreads across her face. Someone's having a good day, and a blinding light engulfs the entire mountain range. From a safe distance, the girl with two-toned hair cheerfully announces it's over. The girl with two-toned hair reports back to Karsavina. She explains that the entire 100,000-strong Imperial army has been turned into amethyst statues. She smirks, saying this show of force was exactly what they needed. Karsavina agrees, now free to focus on finding their master. But there's a problem. A research tower has been destroyed. The girl with two-toned hair just smiles, saying this only buys them more time, and so she waits, content to let the chaos unfold. Meanwhile, back in the present, Kenji is giving Nia some ground rules. She looks up at him, her eyes wide with adoration, and eagerly agrees to her new cover story as his relative. This will go smoothly, I'm sure. Gremory scolds Nia, reminding her of their deal to fix the damages. Nia turns to Saki, a look of gratitude on her face. She thanks the fox spirit for helping to hide her tail. Kenji is relieved, saying Saki's illusion means Nia can finally go outside. Gremory watches on, noting how expressive the girl's tail is. An observation proven true as it pops out, causing Kenji social death. He laments his own lack of magic to fix the situation, but Nia just smiles, saying she has a solution that Gremory is clearly not thrilled about. As they prepare to leave, Saki tells Kenji to be back for dinner. Gremory is completely captivated by the wonders of a simple fish tank. As they walk, Nia holds Kenji's hand, her eyes wide with wonder. He patiently explains the marvels of modern technology, like a telephone pole. Gremory, still salty about the video games, suggests more intellectual pursuits. Kenji just laughs, teasing her for being a sore loser, but she insists she's a demon of knowledge. She then tries to assert dominance, declaring Nia is now her little sister, a declaration that Saki's silent pressure immediately puts a stop to, so Gremory begrudgingly accepts Nia as a relative for the sake of their cover story. Kenji suggests they head to the shopping district, oblivious to the tension. But he suddenly turns, a look of confusion on his face. A familiar voice calls out, and he sees his two friends from school. They walk over, teasing him for finally getting a girlfriend. Kenji frantically tries to explain that it's not what it looks like. Gremory just looks on as he insists it's all a misunderstanding. His friend introduces his own girlfriend, just to rub a little salt in the wound. So Kenji blurts out that Gremory is in fact his girlfriend, a thought he immediately regrets, having forgotten her fake name. But Gremory smoothly introduces herself and Nia with their new identities. The friends seem to buy it, welcoming the girls to the group. But his friend turns to Gremory with a serious look, having one last thing to say. His friend leans in, offering some questionable advice. He calls Kenji out on his specific tastes, much to our boy's dismay. But it's all in good fun as the two share a laugh. Gremory, however, is not amused by their little chat, and Nia seems completely lost by the conversation. The group decides it's time to part ways for the day, but not before his friend invites him to a haunted spot. A classic date night idea. Kenji seems surprised, but his friend explains he heard a story about a classic long-haired ghost in the woods. With that, they wave goodbye, leaving Kenji to his own devices. A narrator ominously declares this was the last time they were seen. Nia immediately tells the narrator to cut it out. Guess she's not a fan of foreshadowing. Gremory asks if the mention of the mountain has him worried, but Nia just winks, completely unconcerned. After all, that mountain is where her gate first opened. Kenji decides he's probably just overthinking the whole thing. Back at the house, a fragile peace settles over them, until the landline phone suddenly begins to ring. Saki calls out from the kitchen, asking him to get it. He answers, and a voice on the other end introduces herself. He's left completely speechless by the voice on the other end. The caller tells him that his friends never made it home. He listens in silence as a cold dread begins to set in. He hangs up, explaining to the girls that it was his friend's sister. She's completely panicked, unable to get in touch with any of them. Gremory points out the time, saying they're not exactly children. But Kenji knows his friend wouldn't just vanish without a word. Saki asks if something has been bothering him, and he remembers the mountain where Nia's gate opened and the potential for leaked magic. A classic recipe for a haunting. He tries to laugh it off, but Gremory reminds him that spiritual beings are quite susceptible to such things. Kenji immediately panics, declaring he has to go check it out. He shouts that if his theory is correct, then this is all his fault. Saki tries to argue, but he's not listening. She grabs his arm, pleading that she'll do anything for him. All he has to do is ask for her help. Nia chimes in, certain that Gremory will help them out. You know, for a price. Kenji's hand clenches, his resolve hardening. He smiles, admitting he got carried away and needs their help. He turns to Nia, who's now dressed in some new clothes, and asks if she can track the scent of his missing friends. Nia looks down, trying to recall the scent of his friends, but she admits she might not remember them clearly. Kenji's expression hardens, his resolve clear. He just nods, understanding the situation completely. He pats Gremory's head, asking her to stay behind and watch the house. And with that, the three of them head out into the night, leaving a very confused former Duchess all alone. Guess she's on house-sitting duty now. They race up the mountain, Kenji already out of breath, only to find his friends perfectly safe at the summit. It was all a big misunderstanding, and Kenji is absolutely mortified. His friend's girlfriend apologizes for the trouble they caused. They ask if he saw something strange up on the mountain. His friend suddenly looks shocked by something unseen, and his girlfriend reaches out with a terrifying grin. A look of confusion crosses the friend's face, but he just laughs it off, saying Kenji must have zoned out. With that, the group says their goodbyes for the night. Later, at his friend's apartment building, the boy stirs peacefully in his sleep, greeted by a cheerful voice wishing him good morning. His friend jolts awake, completely confused. He demands to know who's in his room, and finds a strange, unclothed girl sitting on his morning paper. Well, that's one way to start the day. She tells him her heart is already taken, despite his obvious staring. He suddenly remembers where he's seen her before. She was the ghost they met in the woods, sitting on a pile of bones. He'd asked if she was responsible for the grisly scene. She'd simply claimed it was all in self-defense. He'd asked if she would let them leave in peace, but she had other plans. Because she could smell the scent of a certain stray beastman on them. She explains that she'll be learning all about this world from him. He realizes with horror that she was the one who attacked them. She admits that altering memories is difficult in this low magic world. So she tells him not to worry, as she has a much better use for him. He can only stare back, his mind racing. He asks if this means he's still useful to her, demanding one answer. Guess he's decided to negotiate with the tiny unclothed terrorist. He asks her what exactly she is. She just smiles, asking if he's sure he wants to know, and introduces herself as Anita, the Vessel of Tears, a name that fills Kenji's friend with absolute dread. She reveals her true form, a horrifying mass of eyes and mouths. She explains this is just a fragment, shrunk down to fit. She asks if he's afraid, noting his commendable lack of screaming. She gushes that their master loved her even in this form, a form she seems to find absolutely wonderful. Guess there's no accounting for taste. Her goal is to take Kenji back from Saki and the demon. She believes Nia is easy to manipulate and Saki is easy to expose. She laments that she can't merge with her main body right now. Meanwhile, her main body back home is having communication issues. She never expected the new world's magic to be this weak. The girl with two-toned hair muses that this explains why their master hasn't returned. She then calls out Anita's name with a cheerful smile and asks Elatier if something has gone wrong. Elatier appears, her expression uncharacteristically serious. She admits that she could use a little help with the situation. We see her dragging a panicked noblewoman named Kay. Guess royal drama follows you across worlds. The two-toned hair girl explains that Charlestina is worried sick about her. They confront the struggling Kai, asking what's gotten into her. Kai just begs them to stop, her face a mask of anguish. But Elatier holds her tight, trying to snap her out of it. The girl with two-toned hair drives a blade into Kai's leg. Kai stumbles back, accusing her of preventing her reunion. She threatens to take the entire castle hostage to get her way. But Elatier calmly states that they won't allow that, as a strange substance begins to creep up Kai's legs. The goo quickly envelops her, completely immobilizing her. The girl scolds her, saying their master would be disappointed. And just then, Karsavina appears before them. She understands the situation but asks if they can be trusted. The girl with two-toned hair just smiles, admitting she doesn't get it. She explains that his new world has dangerously low magic, and asks Elatier if she's still willing to risk it all for him. Elatier's answer is a resounding and slightly terrifying yes. Karsavina walks on, still worried about Kai's fragile state. But the girl with two-toned hair just smiles, saying she'll manage. Karsavina then asks if Charlestina can handle the journey. The saint just celebrates, saying if she complains enough, she'll win. Karsavina asks the girl if she's enjoying the chaos she's created. She tells her to prepare, as rebuilding the gate will take a few days. The girl calls her boring, her thoughts turning to Anita. She smiles, saying she has a little secret to share, and she stands before Elatier, ready for a private conversation. The two playfully banter, with the girl teasing Elatier for information. She then admits that she was the one who sent Nia to the other world, a confession that immediately piques Elatier's interest. The girl suggests they move, assuring her that wind spirits are blocking any sound. Elatier wants to know why she would send Nia alone on such a dangerous journey. The girl explains it was a desperate attempt to reunite the girl with her master. And her second reason was to test Karsavina's response, because interdimensional travel is the best way to poke the bear. Elatier asks her to explain what she remembers about Nia's escape. She recalls a time when they were all gathered at the round table. a time when she disposed of Karsavina's surveillance familiar and used an illusion to lure Nia to the gate, with a little help from the spirits. Aletir admits she was careful, certain Karsavina would never notice. The girl with two-toned hair adds that they could guess what the new world was like. Aletir muses that Saki wouldn't have chosen a random world, that she must have had a connection to it. And the girl with two-toned hair finally puts it together, realizing Aletir knew all along. She asks if Aletir heard about Saki's homeland from the fox spirit herself. A memory surfaces of the three of them, sharing stories around a campfire. But Aletir admits that Saki's betrayal still doesn't add up, given the bond she shared with the others. Aletir muses that Karsavina's methods are often quite crude. The girl with two-toned hair adds that familiars were watching both Kay and Charlestina. A memory flashes of Aletir restraining the panicked noblewoman. The girl wonders why Karsavina never analyzed the leftover reincarnation magic. She then asks Aletir to see her part of the plan through. The two stand opposite each other, a silent deal being struck. And the girl with two-toned hair agrees to help. She cheerfully adds that she's already spoken to Veracruz about it. Aletir explains that she has her own reasons for getting involved. She sees herself as Nia's sister, lover, and mother. You know, a perfectly normal and healthy dynamic. Meanwhile, Kenji's friend lets out a massive sneeze. His companions tease him, saying someone must be talking about him. The girl asks if he's all right after the incident on the mountain. He just laughs it off, saying Kenji is tougher than he looks. We flash back to when he first saw Kenji with the girls. He recalls seeing Kenji with another girl at the library, a memory that sent our boy into a jealous rage. His friend describes the girl, not realizing he's talking to the very same person. Kenji can only shout in frustration as his friends laugh, and from a distance, Gremory and Nia watch the scene unfold. Nia suddenly stops, sensing something on the wind. Her eyes widen in disbelief. She bolts from the room, telling a very unbothered Gremory that she's heading out, and is greeted by the girl with two-toned hair, who notes that Kenji and Saki are gone. Nia asks if she's here to take her home, but the girl just cheerfully says no. She explains that this isn't her real body, and that she snuck over here on her own. She then asks Nia if she's disappointed in her master's new, weaker form, a question that leaves the feral girl completely flustered. Nia turns it around, asking if the girl is jealous of his new friends, but she just shrugs, saying it's only natural after 17 years in a new world. Nia breaks down, saying her past self is already gone. The girl realizes Kenji has no intention of ever returning, so she decides it's time for a change of plans. She offers the distraught Nia a chance to team up, promising that if Nia helps her, she can stay. She suggests they get rid of Saki to win him over. A classic let's you and him fight scenario, an offer that leaves Nia completely silent, but she quickly agrees, demanding to hear the plan. The girl's wish is simple, to stay by his side, and she admits she can't fool Nia's powerful senses. Nia accuses her of trying to trick her and keep their master for herself, but the girl explains her desires are unconventional, to say the least, a confession that leaves Nia completely flustered. The girl adds that she's confident his current self won't recognize her. She extends a hand, asking if they have a deal. Nia agrees, and the two shake on their new alliance. The girl then tosses something into the air, creating a small diversion. She notes the situation is as expected, except for the demon's arrival. Now it's just a matter of who from their world comes next. She hopes it's Aletir, though her own fragment would be no match. The girl with two-toned hair notes that this new world is surprisingly compatible with her. She pulls out a revolver, excited by the idea of combining magic with modern weapons. She tells Aletir she's glad they can have a rational discussion about this. And just like that, the gate to Kenji's world begins to crack open once more. Aletir, Charlestina, and the woman with glasses arrive, ready for the journey. Karsavina looks on as the others depart through the portal, but she's stopped by Veracruz, who demands to know what she wants. Veracruz tries to walk away, saying she has no time for demons, but Karsavina insists, wanting to know what's truly on her mind. The two former partners stand in a tense, silent standoff. Karsavina explains that her true wish is a simple one. She only wants to watch his destiny unfold. Veracruz closes her eyes, finally understanding. She asks if Karsavina knew from the very beginning. Karsavina asks what she could possibly be referring to. The fact that Saki stole the reincarnation grimoire from her library? Or that the fox spirit's jealousy drove her to lash out at the others? Veracruz clenches her fist, shouting his name in frustration. She demands to know why Karsavina didn't stop any of it. Karsavina explains that interfering would only distort his wonderful destiny. Veracruz swings, but Karsavina blocks her with ease. She explains that for his sake, she can't let Veracruz die. Veracruz can only roar in frustration, her attack completely neutralized. Karsavina calmly asks if this is how it has to be, calling her actions reckless. She calls this a declaration of war, one that Veracruz can't possibly lose. With a snap of her fingers, she suggests they take this elsewhere. She teleports them to a new dimension, where Veracruz can finally go all out. Veracruz just smirks, impressed by her opponent's confidence. Guess this is just another Tuesday for them. But Karsavina explains this isn't just for her, and unleashes a powerful blast. The entire space is consumed by a massive explosion. But from the smoke, Veracruz emerges completely unscathed. She pushes back against a wave of freezing energy, and unleashes a counterspell of her own, only to be trapped in a coffin of solid ice. Karsavina prepares another attack, ready to end this. She unleashes a beam of pure destructive light, and watches calmly, certain of her victory. Guess she's never seen this movie before, but a dark power begins to stir from within the prison, and the ice shatters in a massive, violent explosion. The sheer force sends Karsavina flying backward. Veracruz's eye glows, questioning if Karsavina is underestimating her. A massive form begins to take shape from pure crystal. She summons a colossal amethyst dragon to face her opponent. Karsavina can only watch as the beast towers over her. Its breath is a conceptual attack, fated to turn all it touches to amethyst, and Karsavina is caught in the blast, her body crystallizing. But she calls her opponent naive, insisting the fight is far from over. With a surge of dark power, she shatters the amethyst prison. The dragon unleashes another blast, destroying itself in the process. But Karsavina scoffs, questioning if that was enough to seal her power. Karsavina admits this won't be an easy fight. She unleashes a power that even the gods cannot touch, and summons an immortal bird to face the amethyst dragon. Meanwhile, Charlestina is already complaining about Karsavina. Guess the customer service is lacking. She struggles to set up a mana absorption stone, her body feeling heavy. A necessary precaution, she explains, to protect the local ecosystem. The woman with glasses agrees, saying they can't predict the gate's effects. Elatir just teases her, asking if she's worried about Nia's opinion. Charlestina ignores her, asking if they've located their master yet. But Elatir just laughs, reminding her she can't track him by scent like Nia can. Elatir reassures her, saying not to worry. Charlestina gets lost in a fantasy of her prince coming to save her. The woman with glasses asks Elatir what her actual plan is. Elatir just smiles, saying it'll be fun to see who comes for him first. Meanwhile, back at Kenji's house, the night wears on. Saki calls out, announcing that the bath is finally free. Kenji, at his desk with Nia, says he's on his way. He gets up to leave, telling Nia he's going to wash up. But Gremory immediately complains about the bathing order. She calls herself the boss, a title Nia is very quick to challenge. Kenji sighs, completely done with their bickering. So he just walks away, because that's peak conflict resolution. Gremory tells Nia to stay put, deciding to head back to her room. But she pauses, admitting she has a bad feeling about this. And with that, she closes the door behind her, leaving a very pouty Nia all alone. She mutters that the demon is surprisingly diligent, but then she sees a familiar, gooey form on the bed. She realizes with a jolt that someone else has arrived, and finds the girl with two-toned hair waiting in the doorway. The girl with two-toned hair suggests they go have a little chat tonight. Nia clenches her fist, reluctantly agreeing to the plan. The girl pats her on the back, telling her not to hold back. She smirks, saying she'll make sure the other party makes the first move. All Nia has to do is unleash her full power in response. Her eyes swirl with a chilling, manipulative energy. Elsewhere, Gremory asks Saki if she plans to come along, but Saki is busy, telling the demon to focus on protecting Kenji. She declares that this world is her home turf and she won't be pushed around. Gremory just sighs, clearly unimpressed with the dramatic speech. The woman with glasses can only stare in silence, while Gremory complains about how long they've been waiting, shouting that she's been stuck here for half a day already. Elatir just teases her, blaming her weakness on the sunlight, a fact that leaves the former Duchess completely drained. Guess immortality doesn't come with a good UV rating. But Charlestina is just overjoyed at the thought of a reunion. Elatir asks if the journey is too much, but the saint insists she'll endure anything for him. The woman with glasses just looks on as the others bicker, until the sound of a snapping twig cuts through the air, catching both Elatir and Gremory completely by surprise. Charlestina covers her mouth, tears welling in her eyes, and Kenji greets his former partners with an awkward wave. Gremory, however, is completely lost. She points, demanding to know who this kid is. Elatir teases Charlestina about her long-lost prince, a comment that sends Gremory into a dramatic, flustered collapse. Kenji just scratches his head, saying his past life is in the past, but his words leave Charlestina completely heartbroken. He tells her that the man she loved is gone, but Nia steps in, declaring she's staying right here with her master. Charlestina's eyes light up, declaring she'll stay here as well, but Kenji immediately shuts that idea down. He explains that unlike Nia, she has a kingdom to lead, but she doesn't care, insisting her only home is by his side. He tries to reason with her, calling out her name. A laugh cuts through the tension as Elatier steps forward. She claims the solution to this whole mess is actually quite simple. Her prince has just been cursed by a wicked fox and needs to be freed. She offers a hand, but Charlestina calls her by another name in confusion. Elatier explains her plan. Just rip his soul out and pop it into a new body. Totally normal friend stuff. Charlestina grabs Elatier's hand, her expression turning grim. And with a furious shout, she completely crushes it. The mangled hand falls to the ground, but Elatier seems unconcerned. Nia calls out her recklessness as Elatier examines the damage. She then asks how the saint plans to fix this, since her holy magic is useless here. A fact that leaves Charlestina completely stunned. But Elatier's hand regenerates in an instant, as if nothing happened. Guess she's got a great healthcare plan. The saint is overjoyed, realizing his presence has changed the very laws of magic. Kenji can only sigh, completely overwhelmed by this revelation. His plan for a peaceful resolution is suddenly covered in goo. Charlestina's fury erupts, declaring she'll never forgive such an insult. The girl with two-toned hair smirks, noting how easy her target is to provoke. She declares she'll force them to reveal their location. Kenji tries to calm Nia, telling her it's okay, while Elatier tells the furious saint to just calm down. But the trap is sprung as Nia is suddenly covered in black goo. Charlestina is caught as well, completely immobilized by the attack. Elsewhere, Elatier and the girl with two-toned hair finally meet up. They look down at another victim, planning to absorb her before she recovers. The girl with two-toned hair then looks up, ready for a chat with a hovering Saki. Saki can only stare as the girl with two-toned hair explains the main players haven't even arrived yet. Later that night, Kenji stands alone on the balcony. He turns, asking someone if they have a moment. He cheerfully calls out to Gremory, asking why she's up so late. But she's in no mood for pleasantries, telling him to get to the point. He asks if she's noticed what's happening outside. She explains that his former harem is on their way to deal with Saki and Nia. He asks what she plans to do about it. She says she'll just watch the chaos unfold, but Kenji insists he already understands. He clenches his fist, explaining he can use the magic Saki has placed around the house for himself. She imagines his past self, a being of immense power. But Kenji just laughs, saying he wants to live this life on his own terms. Gremory sighs, telling him he doesn't understand a thing. She argues that his power is just another part of his identity, and that his real failure was an unconscious arrogance, a belief that he was never truly equal to those around him. She asks if anything has really changed in this new life, then mockingly points out how flawed he is now. Well, that's one way to humble a guy. She promises to keep him in line if he ever gets too full of himself, and asks if he's finally ready to face reality. Kenji smiles, thanking Gremory for her harsh but necessary words. A flustered Gremory immediately demands a smartphone for her troubles. He admits he's not entirely convinced by her logic, but for now, he's ready to give this his all. He remembers his true wish, for everyone to simply be together. He tells a determined Gremory that it's time to go. He can sense them now, 5 powerful mana signatures approaching. He grabs her hand, pulling the surprised demon along, and in a flash of light, they vanish from the room, reappearing outside, leaving Gremory completely bewildered. Gremory boasts that teleporting them all is a simple task, until she's suddenly struck down by an unseen force. Kenji throws up a barrier, shielding her from the attack. And from the bushes, the girl with two-toned hair takes aim. Kenji recognizes the attack, shouting out Anita's name. The girl just smiles, showing off her newly borrowed arsenal. Kenji and Gremory can only stare, completely baffled by this. A familiar voice calls out to her brother, and Saki descends from the sky in her winged form. She immediately turns on Gremory, terrifying the former Duchess. Kenji steps in, telling Saki not to blame the demon for this. Saki asks the girl if she's Anita and if she's here for a fight. The girl cheerfully admits she attacked first, blaming Saki for manipulating Nia. She explains she only immobilized the humans to keep them safe. A likely story. She claims this was all to prevent a real bloodbath, asking if Kenji was waiting for her. She then holds up 2 fingers, announcing more guests are on the way. With that, she sinks into a mass of goo, ready to move the party elsewhere. And in the distance, a battle erupts with explosive force. A monstrous creature roars, completely unimpressed by its opponents, while a familiar silhouette rises, her power slowly returning. Karsavina notes that Veracruz's power is impressive, but her own attacks are far more efficient. Veracruz counters, saying Karsavina should know by now that her magic is useless. The dragon roars, demanding she surrender to an eternal amethyst slumber. But Karsavina just smiles, calling her opponent naive. She asked if Veracruz thought she was just running away. She was actually drawing a massive magic formation across the battlefield. A ritual that normally requires countless sacrifices, but she's offering her own life as the price. She unleashes her ultimate spell, a power that can rewrite destiny itself. The entire dimension begins to warp and twist around them, and Karsavina declares that any chance of victory has now been completely erased. The amethyst dragon roars, dismissing her words as empty threats, and unleashes its conceptual attack, a beam of pure crystallizing energy. But Karsavina stands completely unharmed, explaining that fate itself prevents the attack from reaching her. She's created a pocket dimension where she can manipulate the stars and the destinies tied to them. With this power, she can rewrite the very fabric of reality. She muses that killing Veracruz would be simple, but far too wasteful. The dragon is suddenly enveloped in a blinding light, its form wavering, and Veracruz is forced back to her human form as Karsavina offers to grant her true wish instead. A vision shows a baby dragon, an outcast born to a powerful clan, a child fated to be slaughtered alongside its entire family moments after its birth. Karsavina explains she was a monster starved for affection. Her harshness was a desperate need for his acceptance. And now Karsavina has granted her wish, turning her into a mere human. Veracruz finally understands the arrogance that led to her downfall. But just as the lesson sinks in, Karsavina is struck down from behind. Well, that's karma for you. Elatir holds her, warning that the sealing dagger's effect is fading. Veracruz can only roar, accepting this sudden turn of events. Karsavina looks on in disbelief, unable to comprehend what's happening, as the very dimension around them begins to shatter. Karsavina realizes their goal was to strip her of her power and send her to his world. Kenji looks on as the portal opens, and the girl with two-toned hair notes its arrival. Elatir tackles Anita, ordering her to isolate the stone and destroy the gate with Saki. The girl with two-toned hair hands Saki the device, as if this is all perfectly normal. Elatir and Saki stand before the unstable gate, ready to close it for good. They unleash a torrent of power shattering the portal, and Karsavina is caught in the blast, her body racked with pain. Elatir holds the wounded Karsavina as Kenji stares in shock. Charlestina demands an explanation from the girl, calling her Ludi, but Elatir just smiles, declaring she's finally been set free. Karsavina's mask lies discarded on the ground. Veracruz stands defiant, vowing not to forgive this deception. Charlestina realizes this was Karsavina's own twisted form of love, a revelation that leaves Saki completely stunned. Ludi explains that Saki was also just a pawn in a larger game. Gremory tells her not to worry about the past, insisting that Saki's own feelings are what truly matter. Saki seems to accept this, a weight lifted from her shoulders. She turns to Gremory with a smile, thanking her for the clarity, and declares that in her world, she'll be the one to deal with the invaders. Veracruz can only watch, her expression unreadable, but Ludi just smirks, clearly enjoying the chaos she's created. Charlestina seems to be processing this new, complicated reality. Ludi taunts them, reminding them how much trouble her fragment caused, and asks if they really think they can take on the entire round table. Elatir tries to explain the situation to a very confused Charlestina, but Nia insists that the round table is no problem at all. Guess confidence is her strong suit. Saki points out that they have Gremory on their side now, but Kenji steps in, declaring Saki is his real partner, not Gremory. Saki then declares that as a pillar of this world, her very soul is the price for her power, but Gremory just runs off, saying she'll get her due. He realizes Saki is willing to die for him, and he decides this is no time for hesitation. He shouts for everyone to just be quiet. We see the faces of his former partners. Ludi, ever the opportunist, is ready for a fight. Charlestina is consumed by righteous fury, while Nia can only cry out in distress, and Elatir looks on, her expression unreadable. As Saki and Karsavina prepare to clash, Gremory stands over him, asking if he's finally made a decision. He smiles, realizing he can't let Saki's wish go unfulfilled. Gremory smirks, saying her demonic solution is off the table now that she's human, but she admits she owes her summoner a little something. Kenji shouts that they're completely cornered, with no other choice. He'll convince them all to stay in this world, and he'll take care of every single one of them. Gremory warns him not to get himself killed, since she can't bring him back. He just thanks his partner, his mind now completely made up. The next day, back at school, a sound echoes from the rooftop. A voice calls his name, and he turns in surprise. His friends tease him for rushing home, assuming he's finally got a girlfriend. They recall seeing him with a tall, muscular woman and another with glasses, and then with two other girls, one dressed in a gothic style. We see a glimpse of his new housemates, getting along surprisingly well. His friends lean in, desperate for details on his sudden popularity. Kenji just smiles, explaining that he has some unavoidable circumstances that he simply has to deal with.